we're coming up after the Lysol 200. We'll have coverage of the CART FedEx Championship Series and the CART Grand Prix of Cleveland on this Burke Lakefront Airport circuit. It's very rough indeed.
It's tough on the drivers, it's tough on the cars. In places they spend as much time in the air as on the ground, turning these race vehicles into low-flying aircraft.
A coverage will come up immediately after the Lysol 200. That's coming up next on ESPN. Cleveland, the CART held the start of the race as long as they could. We're only on lap 6. And Juan Montoya, who is the pole sitter, is the leader of the race. You look back to second place, Gilles de Ferran. Now we'll take you back and show you exactly what you have missed in these first 6 laps of the run. So our first Toyota Spotlight focuses on the start of the race, with Montoya jumping into the lead, Gilles de Ferran sweeping way outside, and it was a good start. The only problem was one with Bryan Herta, who spun quickly, but he got restarted. The good news in the midst of all of that was that Paul Tracy started 8th and now runs 3rd. The bad news is that Helio Castroneves is out of the run and in the pits right now, waiting to see if they can repair something in the engine compartment. Let's go to Jan Beekes.
Well, the situation for Helio Castroneves, believe it or not, a boost line came off. They simply came into pits, took off the engine cover, reconnected a line. He is back out on the racetrack. That's just incredible luck for Helio Castroneves. What, 1, 2, 3 races in a row?
We're watching this battle between Michael Andretti and Paul Tracy. Rick DeBrule?
Well, I just want you to know that apparently as they were battling just a moment ago, Paul Tracy passed Michael Andretti, but apparently was under a local yellow at that corner. As a result, Tracy is now going to have to move back around, let Andretti take the position, and that's exactly what has happened.
So this race is underway. We have had no full course caution, and here is the field summary at the moment, with the best move in the race being Paul Tracy. Dario Franchitti started in 10th place. He's now, as you can see, up to 7th place. And Montoya has a 3.2-second lead over Gilles de Ferran. The big battle is back at 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Andretti, Tracy, and Moreno. When you take a look in the upper left-hand corner, in the parentheses is where they started in this field. The big move by Tracy. Andretti out to the far east end. Tracy in pursuit, so is Moreno. Moreno in what we understand to be his last ride in this car. The last report is that Mark Blundell, who is here at the track, will be fit to run in 2 weeks at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. And of course that means Roberto Moreno is available, and that set off all kinds of rumors all up and down the paddock.
Roberto Moreno stepped into a very difficult position. It's hard to come in after the season started without any testing, without the relationships developed within the team. He has done an outstanding job elevating both he and Mauricio Gugelmin with every race. This race, he started in 5th position. He's running strong in that position. He's been a real boost for this team.
Michel Jourdain Jr. has been reported out of the race, transmission problem. And that's a bit predictive of this racetrack. Transmissions, half shafts, CV joints. If a team didn't go thoroughly through those last night, they should not expect to make it to the end of the field today. Not suggesting that that happened in the case of Michel Jourdain Jr., because even if you are as precise as possible, this track will still beat those parts into submission.
This track is extremely bumpy. In some places, the cars are in the air for a long period of time. It's difficult for the drivers to figure out exactly when to turn or to accelerate, because they have to make sure all 4 tires are planted back on the pavement, and it'll shake just about every part on this car loose if given the opportunity.
Back at the front with Montoya, who steadily pulls away from second place Gilles de Ferran. Jan?
And his team owner, Chip Ganassi, at the start of the race, went up to Gilles de Ferran's team owner, Derek Walker, came up and shook him and said, "Hey, what's your strategy today? Brains or luck?"
Well, covering for us today in the pits, Jan Beekes and Rick DeBrule. Gary Gerould is on assignment in the booth, of course. Parker Johnstone is alongside as we watch Montoya. There is some reports from the corner workers on the course, and remember, many of them here are volunteer to be able to put on an event of this magnitude and size. Well, there are reports that there is some light sprinkles on some sections of the course. So we will check that as well. In fact, here at the start-finish line at the broadcast facility, there is a couple of drops beginning to show on the front window. Field comes through over the line, completing the 11th lap. Now the report comes in from turn 3 over alongside Lake Erie that there is moisture being recorded there. Rick DeBrule?
Just want you to know, very light rain in the pit, but the important thing is, look at the tire they just put on the pit wall. They just moved the slick off. They put the rain tire up. They're checking the pressures. They are getting ready. Don't know for sure if it's going to be a factor, but they have to be ready for it.
That's a sign, as you see. Ken works the tires in the Newman Haas pit, making a final check on the air pressures on those rain tires. And you ride on board with Christian Fittipaldi.
It's the back section of the course. Paul, turns 7 and 8. They're just over 3.2 Gs here. It's one of the few places where the drivers can get into concrete as they come off that corner. It's off camber, sucks them right down into the wall. They're at 185 miles an hour, hard on the brakes, down a couple of gears into this quick right-left pit chicane.
Max Pappas just ahead.
175 miles an hour coming down into the principal passing and braking area of this course. Turn number 1, 150 feet wide. $160 miles an hour at this point, approaching turn 3 on the brakes. Watch the bumps through here. They have to be very careful feeding the throttle back on.
Well, during the onboard run, I didn't see any evidence of any rain there. But Michael Andretti, he's still up at the front, runs in third. Rick DeBrule reports from their pit.
Word from the team is that Michael Andretti is having radio problems. Apparently, even on the grid, they were out there trying to work with it. They can hear what he says, but he can only hear them intermittently on the track. Where that could become an issue is if they have to tell him to come in and change tires, they're not sure they can get the word to him at the right moment. If he decides to do it, he can say it. But if the team, because of something going on another part of the track, decides to call him in, he may not hear.
Robbie Gordon fell well behind on the start all the way to last place and is now working his way up, is in 19th position. Montoya still leads it, followed by DeFerrin and Andretti. Back at the Burke Lakefront Airport, Cleveland, Jimmy Vasser just got around Cristiano D'Amata for 11th place. Only change in the top 20 that has occurred since lap 6. We're now on lap 16, and you ride with Juan Montoya, who has 5 seconds over second place Gil DeFerrin.
You can see the moisture starting to accumulate on the onboard camera there. It won't affect the grip level until there's a significant accumulation of moisture. The drivers won't lift or alter their line in any way until it starts to get a little worse.
Rain comes out now as umbrellas go up at the start-finish line, and you can see evidence of rain on the camera of Juan Montoya. You can also see that Helio Castroneves is back in the fight, can't you? Back here is a battle that has gone on constantly for the past couple of seconds. Christian Fittipaldi leads it now. Oh, Robbie Gordon, who fell all the way to last, loses it but keeps on the racetrack. The battle has involved Pappas, Fittipaldi, P.J. Jones, Robbie Gordon, and Mimo Gidley. Christian Fittipaldi, when he made his pass, got into 16th place. You now ride with Richie Hearn. He's right behind Gidley. Brian Herta, who spun on the first corner and had to wait till the field would come through, is just behind Richie Hearn. Let's go to the pits, Jan Vikas.
Well, the first driver out of the race is Michel Jourdain. What put you out?
Well, first in the start, like when Brian spun, somebody just died in front of me. I had to brake and lost a lot of positions. Then when I was trying to pass Mimo Gidley, I ran a little bit off track. And then when I was in fourth, when I tried to go into third, the third and fourth broke, so that's what. So it was a gearbox problem. It's a shame because the Desna Mexico car, the Lola, was very, very good, and we had a very competitive car. So it's a shame. I think we could have got a very good result today. So we just have to keep working hard.
Okay, guys, I think that may not be the first or may not be the last, I should say, gearbox problem we'll see today.
And obviously, since we did mention it, that when he jumped those tires and that cone and pulled them out into the track, the safety team was able to get all that out of the way without going to the full course yellow.
Keep in mind, Brian Hurt is in the middle of this fight. He spun in the opening lap, so he's not a factor in this fight as of the moment. You know, I take that back.
Actually, part of the battle.
He's now caught back up. So
Looking
he
for
is.
Gidley, yep.
He is fighting for position here. That was a real quick recovery after that first lap spin.
And theoretically, you'd have to assume that he would be substantially faster than the cars around him owing to the qualifying positions.
The Rahal team's always been very good at Cleveland. They're able to get the shock damper combination working very well so they can still produce maximum grip while still riding the bumps. Those two things are sort of in opposition to each other. You want the car low, you want it stiff so that the underwing makes as much downforce as possible, but you need it soft to ride the bumps.
Oh, Franchitti suddenly slows down.
Out a bit, see if we can get it.
Well, listen for the two-way, but Franchitti just suddenly pulled offline, slowed down. Engine appears to be running.
Snap. Need the cable snap. Okay, we hear you.
I think he said the cable snapped. I wonder if he has a throttle linkage problem.
Because you can see the waves of heat at the back of the engine, which of course will stay there sometime even after the engine's down, but it looked to be running, and that may be the throttle.
Stay there, we're going to tow you in. Stay there in the car, we're going to tow you in. Okay.
So Franchitti comes out of the fight, sits by the edge of the racetrack, and now his number falls steadily down through the scoring order.
Paul Tracy had this similar problem yesterday where he had a throttle cable attachment come loose and he wasn't able to make it back. I wonder if Dario's had the exact same problem occur with the number 27 car.
Well, remember, Franchitti came in at second in the points, and with this following through, it's not going to bode well for him in the point stats at the end. Look down from the Honda Helicam.
This is a quick left-hander, turn number 5. There's a big bump right there in turn number 6, and then the drivers have this long right-hander. They're pulling over 3.5 G's here. The problem is you carry a lot of speed, but it tightens up right at the apex, and out at the exit is a concrete wall, slightly off camber, brings the drivers right out to it. A number of drivers have backed into it or slapped it during the course of practice and qualifying. They're hard on the brakes here, downshifting from 165 miles an hour. Very quick right-left transition through that chicane. Start-finish line right here. Then back into the braking area for turn number 1. You can see the pit exit just on the top left-hand side of the screen. They actually come out of the pits faster than they can exit out of this corner. Makes for interesting drag racing after the pit stops occur.
Paul Tracy in 4th is the lead of this 3-car battle. He chases Andretti. He's followed by Moreno and Carpentier. There's Gil de Ferran. Now, last time we gave you the interval, it was up at about 3 seconds. It's dropped to 2.5. Greg Moore has passed Mauricio Gugelmin for 7th, but de Ferran may be speeding up, Jan.
I think he is, because he is going to be on pit road on lap 28. So 6 or 7 laps from now, we will see him here. If that is the case, well, I said this last week and it didn't work out, but it may be, in fact, a 3-stop strategy for Gil de Ferran. Of course, that 3-stop strategy is what won them the race in Portland.
Well, that strategy was so fun to watch as well. There's Mauricio Gugelmin. And Fernandez is behind him. It's a battle for 8. Now, the problem with Franchitti, what can we find out, Rick DeBrule?
I got Kim Green here. Apparently, it's a throttle problem.
Yes, it seems like we've lost throttle somehow. Something's broken in the throttle linkage. We were just cruising along there, saving fuel. The car was great. So we're very disappointed. It's been a tough weekend so far for us at Team Cool Green, but we'll go and get behind Paul's car now. He's running in 3rd, I think, or 4th, and see if we can bring him home a winner. For Dario, we're going to have to wait to Elkhart in 2 weeks.
Now, you just mentioned that you were cruising around saving fuel. In other words, had you leaned it out? Was that the strategy for today?
Yeah, we let Dario race a little bit at the start to try and gain some spots and then start saving fuel as soon as he could.
All right, got to go back upstairs. Helio Castroneves has a problem.
Helio Castroneves has pulled to a stop at the edge of the course. His second problem of the day. They brought him in and were able to repair whatever the issue was, but now it's cropped up once again. We'll be back. Images, the Goodyear blimp is floating overhead, providing our aerial views for today's race. The Spirit of Akron is one of 7 airships in the Goodyear blimp fleet. Goodyear has 3 located here in the United States, 2 in Europe, 1 in South America, and 1 in Australia. And X Games competition is now getting underway in San Francisco. You'll see the coverage on ESPN, ESPN2, and ABC. On ESPN2 tonight at 9, 6 Pacific. For more, log on to ESPN.com. Part of the Go Network, go.com. Juan Montoya remains the leader of the race, though he's started to overhaul some of the rest of the field. Clear sailing in front of him right now, but Gil de Ferran sits 2.2 seconds behind, so he's nibbled a little more off.
And on the previous lap, Montoya had turned the race's quickest lap, but on that lap, de Ferran came back and went 4/10 of a lap quicker. So de Ferran now on the charge. We know that he came in first at Portland. He was using the most fuel, the fastest of the front runners. It looks like they've adopted that strategy again for Cleveland.
Best fight is right here. Andretti trying to hold off Tracy and run through traffic at the same time. This is the traffic that Montoya has already cleared. Tarso Marquez just ahead of him. Again, he is in the Lola, the second Lola at Penske. No Penske car on the track this weekend. Jan Bikus, the problems with the other Lola, that one driven by Helio Castroneves. What's the story?
And surprisingly, another throttle-related problem. He said the throttle is down. He did not elaborate more than that, so that is a rare problem to have 2 in a row with Franchitti and then also with Helio Castroneves.
So Franchitti, Tracy had it yesterday. Didn't count nearly as much having it then. Andretti around Tarso Marquez. Tracy now to work him. When we talk how rough this track is, you're talking about springs and tires, gearboxes and half shafts. Are you talking about throttle cables too?
Absolutely. It sounds like in Franchitti's case, we had a throttle cable break. From the description that Juan gave us with Castroneves, it sounded like the throttle return springs broke, so that if he was at full throttle, it wouldn't return back up, which could be a really big problem around this track.
Gil de Ferran, second place. And his crew has called him in. He's whittled it down in 3 laps from 2.5 seconds to right at 2 seconds as he heads into the pits, and you can see that many of the other teams are laid out as well. We go to Jan.
Yes, Max Pappas is just leaving. Many of the teams are starting to set up. Jimmy Vasser will be pitting in front of Gil de Ferran at the same time. They're expecting to make no changes, just slap some tires and fill it up with fuel. I'm taking a quick look at the tire wear for Goodyear. At this distance, it looks pretty reasonable, so that's a good sign. Waiting for fuel. That's a nice one, just over 12 seconds, 12.5, and here's Vasser. So that was perfect for de Ferran because he beat Vasser before he got here and blocked him. A little problem with the right rear. In fact, there's a lug nut in the middle of the racetrack. Let's hope he has all 4 of those nuts on there, because there's one loose.
Crew runs out and retrieves it. Of course, they usually carry 1, if not several spares on their belt should the lug nut drop out of the wrench when they're making the change. Juan Montoya stays out. Michael Andretti assumes second place, but 9 seconds behind, and he will make his stop. Here comes Michael. Makes his turn on the pit road. Rick de Brule is waiting.
Indeed, they're bringing them in, got them all set up on the line. Moments ago, they had the rain tires out on the wall. As you can see, obviously, they are staying with the slicks. They're going to go ahead and change all 4 tires. No changes that he needs from the team. They're happy with the way the car's running right now. Now it's just a matter of getting him back out and doing battle, getting all the fuel in, getting everything disconnected, and sending him on his way. 12.2 seconds.
Ed Nathman, the team manager for Michael Andretti's Newman Haas Racing team, yells reset into the radio to reset the fuel flow. So he knows how much fuel he has used, though of late some of those fuel flow gauges have not been as accurate as some of the teams would have wanted. Montoya stays out yet another lap. When he comes across the line, he will have completed 30.
And the strategy's unfolding, Paul. If de Ferran came in at the end of the 27th lap, obviously he's got to make a total of 3 stops to get to the end. If Montoya can stretch it out a little further, maybe play off a yellow, he might be able to make this a 2-stop race.
Well, Jan Bikus, what do you think about that possibility?
Oh, that's exactly what they're trying to do. Remember, we were joking about what Chip Ganassi said, brains or luck. Well, it may come down to that today. And it looks like Ganassi, at least for Montoya, might be going the luck route. In other words, trying to do it in 2 stops. Both the players' cars on pit road, and Montoya will be here next time. Rick?
Well, there you've got Patrick Carpentier. He's already made his change. He's getting out. Right behind him, Greg Moore going out. Very quick stops. I got to say, they changed Greg Moore's engine overnight because they were just a little this afternoon because they were a little concerned about a little vibration they have.
Well, we wait for Montoya to see how far he can carry the car. His teammate Jimmy Vasser stays out. Montoya heads on the pit road. Target Chip Ganassi team is ready to go to work on this car all the way down at the other end.
That's us, straight in.
Jan Bikus is right there.
And there's one other concern, and that is just a moment ago, it started to rain here. We had a bit of a shower, and they...
Okay, zero the fuel, turn the limiter off.
When they zero the fuel, that means
Tires are
that...
on, you ready? Go, go, go.
12.3, when he's telling them to reset the fuel, that means that it resets a counter so they can see, in fact, if they could make it in 2 stops.
The other thing we heard there from Chip Ganassi was telling Juan to turn the limiter off because they're the last pits. They want to make sure that he just goes right to full speed because they can go out of that pit exit very, very quickly.
So this car, Roberto Moreno, takes over the lead of the race. Boy, what a great ride he has had. Certainly he is going to be well rewarded. Pit speed violation for Michael Andretti. They've ordered a drive-through, so he's been in, now heads back out. Talking about Roberto Moreno, though, what a nice replacement job he has done for Mark Blundell, and I hope that's noticed by somebody. Boy, look how Michael gasses it to get back on the course.
And that's what we talked about earlier. You can come out of the pits faster than you can exit turn 1. We saw how that worked to Michael's advantage.
And now Roberto Moreno makes his stop. And that will put him the last of the leaders to have stopped. Montoya will reassume the lead of the race. Well, Mark Blundell has joined us in the booth watching Roberto Moreno. Good stop for him. Up into the lead for a while. He's been doing some good racing.
Yeah, very good stuff. Always seems when I'm with you two guys that Roberto's always doing very well on the racetrack, so I'm not sure I want to come up in the commentary booth too much longer.
Well, you know, you're welcome up here. I've heard you've had an interest, and this is a fun place to watch the race, don't you think?
No, it's an extremely good place, and Moreno's doing an outstanding job. He's committed to the team. The team have gelled with him very well, and the sooner he gets out of my car, the better.
Have you heard anything about possibilities for him once he's out?
I haven't, but, you know, after this job he's done.
Rain starts to come down. Excuse me, Mark Blundell. Michael Andretti comes in, and they are going for rain tires. Rick?
Indeed, snap decision. Michael said he wanted the rain tires. He came in. He considered it last time, but this time they had to do it. Got him in quickly, got him back out. The idea is not to lose too much on this one.
Jan Bikus.
Jimmy Vasser has also laid out his rain tires, and now we see Juan Montoya has decided to do the same thing. You know, it is not totally wet down here on pit road, but for a few moments we had some big drops, and now it's starting to cease somewhat. So this is a very tough time to decide if you really want to go for those rain tires.
Report from the course as Gil DeFerrin spun. The rain starting to pour right at the pit road, and looking around the course, it begins to envelop the entire racetrack.
And Montoya is here getting his rain tires. You hear Chip Ganassi, and now we're getting a major downpour.
This place will turn into a skating rink. It's an airport for all but 2.5 days a year. It's very dirty, very slick. It's so easy to lose control here on slicks, even on the rains.
We mentioned Gil DeFerrin going off course. Well, not off, but certainly not on line. Out at the east end, he's now made it back to the pits and goes for his change as well. So with that, once again, Roberto Moreno has picked up the lead again. P.J. Jones also had his problems and got off course.
You can see these big paint stripes for the runway markings. They're very slick. And as he rolled back in for turn number 7 there on throttle, it just turned the car right around.
So Roberto Moreno is now the leader of the race. Mark Blundell, the driver of that car. Assume you're coming back at Road America at Elkhart Lake in 2 weeks.
I hope so, certainly. But this is going to be a tricky situation here for Moreno because the track is very slick, as Parker was saying. A lot of airplane fuel dropped on the surface, and he's going to have a job keeping this on the road.
Comes Robbie Gordon, who actually is able to move past them, but you've got combinations of tires out here. Oh, Herta comes out, has to stab the brakes for a second. Oh, and now Kanaan in one of the target cars into the barrier coming off the east end. It looks to be Jimmy Vasser.
Yeah, that's the fast corner, turn number 8. Oh, we've got another car in, one of the Penske cars.
That's Tarso. Tarso Marquez comes in there too.
Adrian Fernandez gets through.
Jan Bikus, can you update us on Jimmy Vasser?
I can. Remember I said he was going to come in and get rain tires? He did not. He was on slick tires. That's the reason for Jimmy Vasser. Couldn't get in here in time to get those wet tires.
Well, the rain has turned from a drizzle to a deluge, and Roberto Moreno remains in front of this field despite the deluge. Montoya, who came into the pits, came back out in second place. We've got cars off course all over the place. Here's what it looked like just seconds ago.
Paul, the problem here is that this is the fastest corner on the racetrack. There's a big dip at the exit. It's incredibly slick even in good conditions, and with this rain on slick tires, it's impossible to control the cars with any speed at all. Those slicks allow the cars to aquaplane instantly. That's Tracy
now,
doing a quick 360.
Everybody's running off the course. DeFerrin comes off. We did have a report that Moreno was off, and Christian Fittipaldi spun it in the pits, Rick.
Indeed, he was bringing it in, got almost to his pit, and then simply spun it around. Now they're trying to bring the back end around. It's unfortunate because Christian is one of those guys, he loves to drive in the rain. He was actually thinking this was going to be his big chance before the race if it would rain. In fact, as Crew says, he's one of those guys, when they go out and test, normally they don't go ahead and test in the rain. He's always going, can I? He's just so smooth, he's good. But now they've got to work in a very tight space, and I'm not even sure they're going to be able to get the left rear tire off because it's so tight. Yeah, they squeeze it, they managed to get it off, but now they're going to have to go put everything back on, and it's going to be a long stop.
The double yellow flags go out. That means full course caution. The safety car will go out, and maybe all of this confusion will take on a pattern. But with everybody back and forth on different kinds of tires, trying to switch over to the rains, Montoya has reassumed the lead of this race, and now he's on rain tires. The racetrack in turn 8 out at the east end, where they're also reporting standing water. We're under a full course caution. Don't forget, coming up next, the NASCAR Winston Cup Save Mark Cragen 350K from Sears Point Raceway in Sonoma, California. Can Jeff Gordon, last year's winner, do it again? For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of the Go Network, go.com. Well, you know, it's the kind of storm that hits in the Midwest where it just suddenly opens up. That's what it did. It caught many, if not all, of the cars unaware. You see Max Pappas as he heads back into the action, but the action is currently being restrained by the full course caution. And we had several cars come off course. Tony Kanaan, one of them, Jimmy Vasser, and many other cars off, but they were able to get back on. So we wait for this to now make a little bit of sense, but Juan Montoya has the lead. We'll be back. Still under full course yellow. In fact, they expect more rain. We'll give you the rundown as it stands right now with Montoya as the leader. A couple of things to point out. Al Unser Jr. now up to 5th. Robbie Gordon, look at him there in 9th. Remember, he was a lap down on lap 33. That's just 5 laps ago. And also Brian Herta has moved up and now runs in 10th place, despite the fact that he spun off on the opening lap, the opening corner of the opening lap, and fell all the way to the back of the field. But when the rain came out, well, it became chaos on the race course. The subject of our Toyota Spotlight.
These cars are very stiffly sprung to stay as low as possible. The track's very bumpy, it gets wet, they get on the paint, they go through the bumps at the apex. Here in turn 8, there's a big pool of water right where the drivers come through, and if they're on slick tires, it turns into an unlimited hydroplane. Look at Christian Fittipaldi. Do you know how slick this surface is? I expect Christy Yamaguchi to be doing triple toe loops past him, Paul.
Let's go to the pits. A very wet pits in Jan Bikus.
Yes, and a very wet Jimmy Vasser, and unfortunately a big hit for you. What happened?
You know, I buffed a pretty good start in the race. It's moving up a bit, and then you know, it started raining down there, and I was going to come in for tires, and we discussed it with the team. They were ready for me, but it was my call. to stay out one more lap because the last time through before I came in, it wasn't raining down there anymore where it was before. I thought, you know, maybe it was just a brief shower. The skies looked a little bit bright, and I thought I'd give it one more reconnaissance lap before and then it was just really raining. So I decided I'm coming in, and I came into that turn 8 down there, and I was going about 20 miles an hour, and I needed a rudder more than anything. It wouldn't even turn at all, and it's just all flooded and just went straight in the wall.
And guys, as I'm sure you can see, it's raining even heavier now. Rick?
Maurizio Gugelmin, another one of those people who tried to gamble. Your spotter was saying, I think it's going to dry out a little bit, and you stayed out.
Yeah, he did that, but it's very hard to judge when it's a thunderstorm. If you look around, there is some bright spots, and tell you, I think my car just saw playing on the floor because I was almost going straight and felt like a hoover on the wall and just sucked my car in, and both suspensions on the left were damaged, and I'm done. I think this thing now is a typhoon. I think they're going to red flag this thing.
Not much you can do. You said the only guy who's going to win out there is the pace car.
The way it is, I don't think these cars can run. They're very low on the ground, and if you get a lot of water, you had guys spinning on the pit lane. You don't complain with the tires, you're complaining with the floor of the car, so that's undrivable.
Unfortunately, Maurizio Gugelmin out of this. Jan?
Dario Franchitti, another one out, but you were out prior to that with problems, what, with throttle cable?
Yeah, I think the throttle cable snapped. The guy said it was losing throttle angle before the start, so basically the full power was getting less and less, and then it just snapped, let go coming out the last corner, so we cruised to a halt. Very frustrating because this is exactly what we needed this weather. You know, in the wet we've always been quick, and we're looking forward to going to the front.
There's a lot of drivers that wish they weren't out there. This guy wish he was.
Jimmy and Dario, both their second DNF of the season. We've got a very expensive parking lot beginning to build outside of turn 8. We'll be back with more as they continue under full course caution. And now begs the question, how long will the officials continue to run the cars around the racetrack? And what will be their criteria before they bring them off? As yet, they have not made a decision to remove them. We'll keep track of what's going on with Chief Stewart, Wally Dallenbach, and race control. We go to Rick DeBrule.
Well, Tony Kanaan is sort of a double victim of the rain. First because you spun in it, but you couldn't get into the pits because of the rain.
Yeah, Rick, I couldn't come in because I had a Michael ahead, and Cristiano was a big spray, and I was really slow. And when I saw the pit entrance, it was already too late, and I couldn't brake to stop and come back. Otherwise, I would have spun. I had the slick tires. Fortunately, it was a good race until I prayed for the rain for so long. And when they come, here I am. So
didn't have the right tires on when it finally happened. You said you were only going 20 miles an hour when you spun.
No, probably even that you could pass me with the bike, but unfortunately, the luck it's not on my side right now. We have to turn that, around, and we'll see. I just hope my mom doesn't, get really upset with me. She's gonna call me and, give me a hard time.
Tony's worried about his mom now.
I hope he doesn't try that 20-mile-an-hour line with a highway patrol. Race fans are a very, very special breed. Look at them. They stay in here almost no matter what. Umbrellas are up. If you don't have a raincoat, you certainly can find a garbage bag and stick it over you. But they are sticking in what is a deluge. And on the racetrack, well, this is Richie Hearn's car, though you can barely tell, and it gives you an idea of how hard it is raining. And also, he has to contend not just with the rain, but the blowback from the car in front of him, the spray off the tires coming up in his face. We go to Jan.
Helio Castroneves is one of the smarter drivers here. He decides he's going to stay inside the timing stand to talk to us. Helio, unfortunately, a couple of big problems today for you, engine related.
Well, unfortunately, it's not only today, but whole weekend. Again, the team was doing a superb job in setting the car, and I don't know what happened. The car just stopped on the back straight, and well, it's a lot of happenings all the time, but that's racing. If you get let that go down, you're gonna be down. So go for the next one. Elkhart Lake, we're gonna take them.
You like driving in the rain? Do you wish your car was still running right now so you could slip and slide out there?
Oh yeah, I wish. I was dying there. I can't believe it. But hey, that's racing, and I'm sure the next one you're gonna do it again.
Another guy who loves to drive in the wet.
You may, in fact, have noticed while we were talking, Delio, the sky actually cleared. We're going to show you a couple of these incidents that started when the rain really began to pour. That's Elio's 5th DNF in the last 6 races, unfortunately for him. And as the rain continues to pour, we're at 41 laps complete under the full course caution. Well, under the rules, at 51 laps, we would have a legally complete race. As yet, we've heard no information indicating anything from race control, but two-way traffic. But the good news is that the sky cleared even while we were doing that interview with Helio Castroneves. Not cleared of rain, but certainly the sun came out in one section of Cleveland. There's actually blue sky off to the west. So we'll see where this all takes us in the next few minutes from the CART Grand Prix of Cleveland on a very, very wet afternoon by the lakeshore. Raining out on the west end of the racetrack. It's still sprinkling in the rest of the area. The sky has lightened drastically, and the intent of the race officials are to do everything that they possibly can to get this race back into action and underway and run to the completed distance. 43 laps are complete. 100 laps is the scheduled distance. And to take a look at this coming into this race, especially look down at the end there at Helio Castroneves. 926 laps complete. He's led 5 races, and he had a 16th in the points.
That's been one of the strengths of Team Ganassi over the last few years, Paul, is consistency and the ability to not have any mechanical failures, for the drivers not to make any mistakes. In the past, it's always been Bobby Rahal who's been the champion of laps completed. This year, it's been Christian Fittipaldi, one of the best seasons he's had. He's consistently been at the front, been able to bring the car home, and that'll pay dividends at the end of the season.
And the man we're calling the Iron Man now, Christian Fittipaldi, has completed every lap. Calling the Iron Man because he's actually training for that.
He was back at Colorado Springs in Colorado training with the Olympic team, getting ready for an Ironman competition. Carl Haas's biggest concern is that he would be a little too tired to compete this weekend. Christian told me that the guys are in great shape, but what amazed him is their ability to train from early morning to late in the evening. He said their endurance is incredible. He learned a lot. He's glad to be back in the race car.
Well, the picture that we just gave you off the back of Juan Montoya's race car is not as representative. It's a lot darker there. Of course, the camera's sitting down in between the 2 rear tires, which are throwing up quite a bit of spray. The reason we showed it to you is that the chief steward has radioed the pits and asked that Juan Montoya give him his opinion of the racetrack, what needs to be done, and how soon it will, in fact, be ready. And your guess would be?
Well, it looks like it's ready to go now, Paul. A lot of the rooster tails are starting to subside. That's one of the keys that the teams look for and the drivers look for as to when to switch back to dries. Now, they won't switch back to slicks for quite a while, but certainly, now that the rain stopped, I think they should be ready to go green.
And when and what to switch to, that may be the biggest decision left in the day, Jan.
Well, that is true, but while we have the opportunity, let's take a look at 2 different types of rain tires. First of all, we have the Goodyear pattern, which is asymmetrical. It actually has a radius to it, and you have it offset somewhat, a pretty aggressive, very different sort of rain pattern. We'll walk over here to the very next pit and take a look at a Firestone. It's just over our shoulder here. You can see this is not as asymmetrical. Very straight cut, 2 different ways to go about channeling water. And I think for the first time this year in racing competition, we will see how these 2 fare under very wet conditions. Rick DeBrule?
Just want to talk about what this is going to do to fuel strategy now. The issue being so many laps under yellow, how many laps is it going to take? Now, just talking, for example, with Adrian Fernandez's crew, they're saying they're going to turn it up. They're figuring they need 2 more stops. They just want to go ahead and do it. I think they want to take the strategy that DeFerrin used last week. They're going to power their way to whatever they do.
Well, the report that came back from Juan Montoya is that the straightaways are in pretty good shape. Of course, they're crowned heavily because they are an airport, but there's still quite a bit of water in the corners, but it appears we're going back to racing. We'll be back. Coverage, the Iowa Barnstormers take on the sweepers, the jet dryers, and they're going to blow the water off of the corners here at this track. The rain has stopped. There's one of the jet dryers, in fact, working right now. See those volunteer corner workers? Not only they come out and have to work all weekend, work hard, then they bring the jet dryer by and blow water all over the corner station. But they're going to try to get this track clean and do it just as soon as they can. And that should be fairly short. The grooved runways are already, for the most part, dry. When they come back, it'll be Montoya that will lead the field back to the green. And we want to send you out to the 5th X Games in San Francisco. Here's Chris Fowler. 36 laps, and the lead changes, and our green race average with Montoya currently the leader. And here's the list that's a little distressing, is all of those who are out of this race. And most of that as a result of the downpour and the failure to get over to the wet tires as fast as you can and to try to get it around the race course without losing a position. It took quite a few guys out. Max Pappas just headed out of the pits. Jan Vikas, you were there when he came in.
Yeah, I think it's just a case, Paul, that if you're not running up at the front, why not come into the pits now and get some fuel? Because, you know, if we have a long delay and it takes a while, you might have enough fuel to make it to the end. And that is a strategy I would expect to see a lot of the guys that are not at the front do before we do go back to green.
Good strategy as well. Pappas comes back up to join the pack at the back of the field. Montoya still is behind the safety car, leading the field around onto the full course caution. 47 laps are complete. Rick De Brule?
Indeed, some of the teams are saying their plan is to figure out when the yellows are over, come in, make that brief top off and run up. That's exactly what Roberto Moreno's plan is. By the way, I got to mention, he had to replace his nose. He spun when he still had his slicks on, had to come in after he changed tires, replace the nose, but he did it on the yellow, so he did a minimum amount of damage. Paul?
All right, so 47 complete. We're hoping to get this race going. In fact, there's a very good probability that we will, and do it very quickly. We'll be back.
Of course, without the fenders, the spray is enormous. It's very difficult to see if you're a trailing car, but with the humidity that we have today, it's very easy for the visors to fog up. Normally, the drivers will crack them open. There are ratchet mechanisms on the side of the visor, so you get them open 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch. That's the first time I've ever heard of a visor being glued down in place. And of course, if you're anticipating rain, if you're a driver, you use anti-fog on the inside of the shield. This is something that racers in Europe have to deal with often in South America and also in Europe, in Japan as well. Normally, they don't have to worry about it too much in North America, but on a day like today, if I were driving, I would be prepared with anti-fog, a lighter shield than the normal dark one you would run. Very unusual circumstances. It dropped them out of 5th place all the way to the back of the field.
Well, the skies over the race course are right now clearing. We'll be coming back to the green flag. The one thing that Montoya will not have to deal with is the spray off of other cars. The actual order will be Montoya, Tracy, DeFerrin. That's the race order when they come back to green. Andretti is in 4th place and Carpentier is in 5th. Montoya hears Chip Ganassi tell him that it's green. He saw that, got a car spinning well in the back there. Wow, looks like Robbie Gordon may be off course. Yep, that's Robbie. As he came onto the pit straight, lost it, spun off onto the grass. Well, he's a good off-road driver. He'll be back on the track in a minute. Montoya pulls away. P.J. Jones was lined up directly behind him. Paul Tracy is the next in line in the race because he just jumped out and around Gil DeFerrin. Michael Andretti is right there too. Carpentier just behind him.
We can hear on that.
Here comes DeFerrin. PJ spun, but DeFerrin is back now working on Paul Tracy, and he gets around Tracy. Tracy's coming right back at him. Tracy tucks up under his wing. Tracy comes swinging to the outside. DeFerrin takes a straighter line into the corner. Wide course, you can use a lot of different ways. Rain changes it as well. Michael Andretti is also right there. This is a battle for 2nd place.
It's also a comparison between the Goodyear rain tires and the Firestone rain tires. DeFerrin's got lots of rain experience as well.
Very quick right-left here. Tracy lined up behind DeFerrin for 2nd. Michael Andretti watches Tracy onto the pit straight. Montoya 2.7 seconds ahead. Michael comes out and around. Tracy comes right back at him.
Watch the drag race as they come out of this corner. Michael will try to apex later. Tracy holds the inside. He does a good job of not allowing Michael to get a run coming off the inside of the corner.
Boy, and in some sections of this racetrack, the spray is still a little unbearable when they come through where it still stands very wet. As they're coming up on P.J. Jones, who is off the course there, it's a local yellow area. No passing in that section.
Yeah, you can see how wet the taxiways are here. Very difficult for the drivers to try to judge how much grip they have because it's changing from every section of the track. They get onto the runway sections, it's dry, but they've got the paint. Right there, you can see the threshold markings, which are still very slick. They get back on these taxiways. There's standing water through the apex there in turn 8. Also at the exit, you have to change your judgment and how much speed, how much grip you've got from section to section. This is the most difficult condition a driver faces, is a drying racetrack.
You see the interval from Montoya back to currently 2nd place Gil DeFerrin. Paul Tracy sits in 3rd, and just behind Tracy is Michael Andretti. So we'll ride with him and watch it from that driver's perspective.
it's going to be up to the driver to make the call to go back to slicks. Now, they might get some advice from the pit lane. What the guys in the crew guys are doing now is they're watching the lap times of the other drivers, but at some point, someone will blink first. They'll come into the pits, they'll change to slicks, they'll carefully monitor their lap times, because what'll happen is everyone will be running within a second or so. The first person that goes to slicks and comes up to speed, they'll gain 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds lap, then everybody will dive into the pit lane and make the change back to slicks.
Patrick Carpentier with Adrian Fernandez chasing him now. Al Unser Jr. passed Pruitt, Herta, and Moreno. The first lap after the restart now runs in 8th place. Rick DeBrule.
Well, you got to talk about the strategies associated with this. Ideally, what the teams want to do is they'd like to keep those those rain tires on until they come to their fuel window. If they pit right now, it means they're still going to have to pit again for fuel. So they're kind of hoping that the track stays wet just a little while longer. Then the question comes, do they go the full distance, or does it become a time race when they hit the time limit?
And now Carpentier and Fernandez are closing down on Carpentier's teammate, Greg Moore. Moore currently sits 5th. And the race is beginning to tighten.
As the track dries, Pat, use your slots at your discretion. And you tell us when you want dry tires.
That's exactly what I was talking about, is they're going to leave it up in the hands of the drivers, especially the more experienced drivers. You'll see them starting to look for puddles to try to run these tires through. Oh, Christian Fittipaldi
spins off.
Has gone off, but they'll look for puddles trying to run the car through there to keep these tires cool. The rain tires are very, very soft, and if they run them hard on dry asphalt and concrete, they'll start to come apart. So they'll start weaving down the straightaways looking for wet sections to dry these tires, to cool these tires off.
Christian Fittipaldi off now, but he was pushing it pretty hard. He was the fastest of all competitors last lap. See the local yellow position there going into the chicane, coming onto the pit straight. There's a puddle there. They want to mark that, so they also have out the yellow and red course condition flag. Tracy chases DeFerrin. No contest there. Here comes Michael. We'll watch as the field comes through. Here's a little bit of a fight with Moore and Carpentier. Fernandez just behind them, and then Unser Jr. 54 laps complete.
And you can see as Patrick came off of turn 1 there, Paul, he didn't use up all the exit. That's where all the race rubber is. It's very, very slick until it dries out. He's actually pinching off the corner to get as good a run as possible.
With 54 complete, it is now a legal race should the rain hit too hard once again to run all the way to the 100th lap, the 210th mile. Christian has managed to get back going. He's coming out in front of his teammate Michael.
Lots of variations in line, probably more so than we see at any other circuit. The drivers hunting for grip. You can see they're not using all the road. They're coming off that turn number 8 out towards the concrete. In qualifying, you could put a feeler gauge in between the left rear tires and the wall. Not so now in these conditions.
More Carpentier, they continue at it. Now here comes Carpentier, tucks right in behind Moore.
He's going to look to the inside.
Will he brake? He goes to the inside, but nope. He loses a bit when he does so, but we'll see where the apex comes. Boy, exactly what you described, Parker, as Carpentier makes the move.
And you can see Greg may have gotten a little distracted watching his younger team. Well, I don't know if he's younger now. They're both.
Oh, here
look
comes
at this.
Moore right back at him. They go side by side into the next set of switchbacks. Still side by side. Fernandez behind him saying, you know, let's see what these two are going to do before I get up there. Now Fernandez closes. You're watching down from the Honda Helicam. Fernandez tried to tuck his nose under there for a second. Back to a series of right-handers. Fernandez closes again.
And every lap, Paul, they'll be experimenting, trying to see where the guy in front's a little quicker, maybe altering their line. You can see still they're not letting it out to the edge of the road there. Adrian Fernandez trying to pick up the draft from Greg Moore.
Greg Moore darts all the way to the right behind Carpentier, his teammate. Carpentier into the corner. Still standing yellow over at that corner.
Looks like Adrian's going to try to make the move down the inside here.
Well, he certainly saw it work earlier. See if he can pull it off. Down to the inside. Makes the turn in early.
And for the second lap in a row, you can see how wide Greg Moore went there.
Where was Greg going?
He went right off the end there, Paul. We saw it earlier when Patrick got around him, and now the same thing with Adrian. It's like he just missed the braking point on the outside as he was being overtaken.
So there is Carpentier now 5th, and he got back, but he got back several spots back. He lost it at least down to 8th place. There's Carpentier, Fernandez, Alonso Jr., Scott Pruitt, then comes Moore, Herta, and Roberto Moreno. That's where the fight is. We're back at the front, where now DeFerrin is closed in. In fact, DeFerrin is right there. Back to the pit straight. DeFerrin's going for that inside line, too.
He's got it.
And DeFerrin goes into the lead.
That was great. You could see Gilles move to the right, then he moved to the left. And as Montoya took his line back to the outside, DeFerrin ducked back to the inside. Great strategy there from Gilles DeFerrin.
Oh, very nice setup. Gilles DeFerrin. Look still at how much water they have to contend with. If you get very much offline, you can get into some pretty big puddles. So that brings up the question, how long do they wait now before they go back to dry tires, or do they?
Well, Paul, they've got to extend it at least another 8 to 10 laps in order to make it the race in one more stop. It's drying out a lot. I would think at this point it would be quicker on slicks, but they don't want to give up that track position at this point. They'll extend these rain tires for as long as they can, and there's still a lot of water back on these taxiways, as we can see.
DeFerrin with Montoya. Tracy is 3rd place. He's separated by almost 4 seconds in this battle for the lead, though he's able to come out around. So with DeFerrin out in front, Montoya in 2nd, Tracy 3rd, Michael Andretti is 4th. Paul Tracy and Michael Andretti battling for 3rd place, catching Montoya while they're doing so. There's Montoya, right behind him, Tracy. Robbie Gordon came into the pits, got some fresh tires. He's back out, but he's slowed down, spun. He's gone over. The report is to the dry tires. The question is, when will everybody else?
Well, Montoya's car has gone really loose, Paul. He's used up those rear tires. Tracy and Andretti are catching him rapidly. Watch the back of his car as he turns in. It is very nervous.
Michael Andretti looks for the inside line and tries to get off the corner faster than Paul Tracy. Montoya just ahead. Now Andretti switches back, takes a wide sweeping exit to the corner. This will give him a nice wide arc as he comes into the chicane next, but not enough to get him past Paul Tracy. Carpentier has headed into the pits. He puts on slicks. Let's go to Jan Beekes.
Well, one of the guys that's watching that carefully is Derek Walker. You're seeing other people go for slicks. When will you go?
Gilles will make that call. He can tell what the track conditions are like. We'll watch what everybody else is doing, but right now we're the quickest car on the racetrack, so we're going to sit tight for a minute.
How many lap warning do you think does he have to give you?
Oh, he can pretty well call it just off the last turn. We're ready either way, so it's up to him.
You've done a lot of wet weather testing for Goodyear. Is it the durability that's helping you, or the Firestone's wearing out, you think?
Well, they certainly look like they're falling off the pace.
Well, Paul Tracy makes the move on Montoya and goes into 2nd place. Rick DeBrule. We'll continue to watch this battle, but what do you have?
Just want to update the situation on Michael Andretti. A little bit earlier, he was saying that his tires were starting to blister. He was concerned about them. And for a moment, they said, okay, come on in right now. Then they decided to wait out another lap. And once again, they're leaving it up to Michael, letting him make the decision. But he's definitely seeing that wear. He's saying it's time to come in. And as I look up and down pit road, more and more guys. Adrian Fernandez. I see Roberto Moreno's team getting ready. Carpentier, you just mentioned, it has already been in. Everybody's starting to make this move.
Oh, with Michael around Montoya, nice little drag race over on the Lakeside Straight. Adrian Fernandez comes in. Those are slick tires that he has mounted up. So Fernandez in at 9th position, back into the fight. DeFerrin still the leader. Michael fighting it every inch of the way.
We watched Michael swing out wide while Montoya went to the inside. He's looking for water to keep these tires cool. Right in front of him is Paul Tracy. As Paul comes off of turn 8, you'll see him move back to the right side looking for water. Now watch Tracy swing back, looking for pools of water to try to keep those tires cooled down. Michael's looking to the outside as well. There, you can see it there.
Gil de Ferran heads for the pits. So does Montoya. So pit stops by the front of the field. De Ferran the leader. Let's go to Jan.
And you know, while we were talking to Derek Walker, you may have seen it in his face, he got the call while we were doing the interview that Gil de Ferran wanted the dry tires. And we should see Juan Montoya stopping on this lap as well. 9.8. And let's see how, and here comes Montoya right afterwards. So we know that Gil de Ferran should keep the lead. And now we will see what happens in the tire exchange to dry Firestones for Juan Montoya. Whoa, boy, that was quick, 9.7, but sound just a tick slower than what we saw for de Ferran.
But of course, in that keeping of the lead, Tracy and Andretti stayed out, and Tracy was able to take the lead for a second, but then Michael Andretti gassed it, and now Michael Andretti is leading the race. Still the question of tires here.
Paul, right now, Michael and Paul are running 1:13 laps, 1 minute and 13 seconds. Patrick Carpente, one of the first people with Robbie Gordon to go out in slicks. Well, Robbie on that lap just turned a 1 minute 8 lap. So he is 5 seconds a lap quicker on slicks. Everybody will be coming in now with that sort of advantage on slick tires.
Everybody except Michael. Tracy heads for the pits. Michael Andretti stays out.
On now, mate. Right on the mark now. It's important we get right on the mark. Wet in the pit here, a little wet.
Barry Green to Paul Tracy on the radio.
You can see him at front wing there.
Wheels are done. Oh, Jesus.
Long refuel. And Barry Green obviously not happy about it. Fittipaldi is in. Roberto Moreno just behind him. So here's the question. Michael Andretti, you would expect next time around he should be in and try to get on slicks as well, because being on the reins now just not paying off.
It really isn't. When you're losing 5-6 seconds a lap, you can't afford to stay out. He's got to come in this lap. You can see the wall on the left side. If it gets closer, he's coming in, and he is coming in, Paul.
Michael Andretti, the last of those on rain tires to stop, now slows it to
speed limit.
Slows it to 50 miles an hour, and Rick DeBrule waits.
What's the speed limit? Hold to slow down, man, hold it down. All right.
It's interesting because
reset the fuel meter.
He was one of the first guys.
It's only about 15 gallons. Okay, hold on, hold it. Stay there, hold it. Okay, go.
Just wanted to listen in there. It's interesting because he was one of the first guys to report the tires blistering. But think about this. He's just a lap further into his race, into his fuel window. Maybe, depending upon the circumstances, he might be able to go the distance.
And Rick, talking about circumstances, I felt a couple of drops of rain down here. Wouldn't that be wild?
No, it would not. It might be wild on the race course. Oh, Fernandez catches the wall off of 8 hard. Yellow flags there, not yet full course yellow.
It's very difficult to come out into these conditions on slicks. It's hard to get them up to temperature, and if you catch any water at all, it'll turn the car right around. Making this transition from rains to slicks is very, very difficult.
Now they do go full course yellow. Little fire burns itself out in the exhaust pipes there. Earlier, this was the situation. Greg Moore and Gualter Salas, both of them were able to continue on.
With Montoya stringing right through the middle of them.
Montoya got an eyeful of that, didn't he? And there is Greg Moore as he moves back to speed. But look at the nose of the car. It's battered in. And Fernandez, the safety team, is there. Here's how he got against the wall.
This is entering turn 8 again, where we've had all the problems today. There's a lot of water pulled on the inside. You can see we couldn't see it start, but I'm sure as he crossed the apex and hit that water, it turned the car around. We'll see if we can see it here. There it is.
And a big puddle right on the inside, right off the edge of the line on the apex. And that did some pretty serious damage to Adrian Fernandez's car. So now we're back to full course caution again as Greg Moore climbs out of the car. Gil de Ferran is the leader of the race. He will be the leader ahead of Montoya, Andretti, Tracy, and in 5th place, Al Unser Jr. We'll be back. Laps are complete. Comes out with Montoya trying to move to the inside of Gil de Ferran. Michael Andretti is in 3rd. Montoya for the moment has 1st place. But here comes de Ferran ducking to the inside. Drag race off of the first corner as we go back green. Montoya pulls him through this section. De Ferran moves to the inside. Right-hander just ahead. Michael Andretti closes. Montoya pulls away through the first set of chicanes. Onto a straightaway now. He pulls away further. Michael begins to threaten de Ferran.
Remember, the problem we've got here is that the Firestone tires come up to temperature more quickly than Goodyear's. It's going to take Gil a few laps to get on an even footing with these Firestone shod cars. In the meantime, he's got Michael Andretti all over the back. Oh, Michael, big moment there as
Here
Tracy
comes
goes
Tracy,
by.
gets him just with that one quick little mistake. You can see it's still very wet in some sections of the course. Michael comes back after Tracy and gets around him, back in pursuit of de Ferran. But Tracy's still right there. And take a look just behind him. Robbie Gordon sits there. He just got around Carpentier for 6th. And Al Unser Jr. is there still. Junior sits in 5th. Gordon works on Junior. He's got 5th. Oh, Gordon is suddenly on fire. He's trying to get through this field and doing it. Now, as they do this, why is Robbie Gordon running so hot as Al Unser Jr. comes back at him? Why are they going at each other at lap 69 like this? Jan Beekes, what are they saying in the pits?
What they're saying is that they have known for quite some time this would be a timed race. CART doesn't say it officially till about 10 minutes to go, but Derek Walker and company are saying they figure this will be about an 88-lap race.
So that's what they're figuring in the pits. As yet, we have had no official notification from CART Control, but there is some logic to that. 69 laps complete, so these guys all see it as the end game in this race.
Robbie Gordon's been driving the wheels off this car since the green flag. He's been off a couple times, but now he's making a move on Paul Tracy.
Gordon works on the inside of Tracy, and he gets Tracy.
What an outstanding drive. And on the previous lap, when he got side by side with Al, he made a little juke to the outside just to make it stick.
Look how Gordon moved up through the field. Tracy now works on Gordon. Al Unser Jr. is there. Tracy to the inside of Gordon. Whoa! And Gordon cuts him off.
On the outside, very, very difficult, especially with the water that's still on the off the racing line here.
But if you want a guy who is spectacular behind the wheel and has no problem taking risk, it's without question Robbie Gordon. And look at Bryan Herta now. You get a glimpse here. Here comes Al Unser Jr. There's Bryan Herta. Remember, he fell all the way to last. He now runs 7th. At the front, still Montoya. There's de Ferran in 2nd, Michael in 3rd. Let's go to Rick Rule.
Well, Greg Moore, we're trying to watch the monitor. This is a great race going on right there, but we got to talk about what you put you out of the race.
We had some kind of exhaust problem where we broke a header or something like that, and we were, it's unfortunate, but I guess just wasn't our day today. We were really, really fast laps there in the dry, and then it started to rain, and we just kind of lost it, and it was, it's disappointing we had something like that, because if we kept going, we would have burnt the car down, so it's better to park the car and, go on to Elkhart Lake where we know we got a good shot of winning.
Time to move on to the next race.
Herta charges on Unser, gets past him. They almost touch wheels. Unser lights the brakes going into the corner. Now Herta looks at Tracy.
Herta set that up as Al tried to attack Paul. Herta got a really clean exit coming off of turn 1, was able to out-drag race him and then out-brake him into turn 3.
Robbie Gordon is not yet in contact with Michael Andretti. That'll start as a battle for 3rd, probably very quickly here. Montoya still the leader, de Ferran in 2nd. There's Tracy, there's Herta as he chases Tracy.
What a great recovery for Bryan Herta after that opening first turn spin. He's charged from the back all the way up to 6th place now.
And Robbie Gordon is having a great day, currently in 4th, Jan.
He certainly is, and remember, that is a Toyota power plant, and last year they struggled on road courses where you had to use a large RPM spread. but they've worked all winter. They've worked hard on this engine, and obviously in these conditions, it means Toyota has made big gains as far as throttle response.
Herta long and inside on Tracy. He had him, but then he lost him because he lost the back end. Tracy comes back at him. Very close competition here, heading for the left-hander. Drag racing down the east end. And Herta takes him, but Tracy is coming right back.
That is absolutely the exact moves we saw between DeFerrin and Zanardi only a few years ago. Cleveland's one of the only road courses where you can have that kind of side-by-side action, waiting for the other man to blink first as you dive down into the corners.
And that brought Unser and Carpentier forward. That battle took a little bit of time, and as a result, Al Unser Jr. is sitting right there, so is Patrick Carpentier. Roberto Moreno is behind them. Michael Andretti now closing on Gilles DeFerrin at the front of the field. Well, for the moment, it's stabilized just a little bit as we take a look back to Herta's move on Tracy, slides across his front and then back. We'll be right back. Rule in the pitch, no changes since we left you, and we are going to carry you right to the checkered flag now. Montoya is the leader, DeFerrin second, Michael Andretti in third. Robbie Gordon, who is up on Andretti's, dropped back a little bit.
He lost a little bit of time on that last lap. Right now, Montoya is the quickest man on the track at 63 seconds flat. Gordon had fallen back to a 65-second lap. He recovered a little bit more on that last lap across the start-finish line. Every lap, they're going to pick up speed. The driver that can judge the condition of the track the best and take advantage of it without making a mistake is going to come out on top of this thing. Every lap, they've got to push, see how much less is left in themselves in the car, try to see how fast they can slide the car through the water. Very, very difficult conditions.
We did have the report from Jan Bikus in the pits that the crews are assuming it's an 88-lap race. We're at the 75th lap. As yet, we have no official confirmation that it moves to a timed race and would end at approximately 88 laps. We still wait for that information. DeFerrin with Andretti in pursuit.
Montoya now about 0.6 of a second quicker than DeFerrin and Andretti, but he's catching traffic. It's exactly what DeFerrin and Andretti need to try to make up the deficit.
Straightaway parallels the Lake Erie shoreline, just about 150 feet off the edge of the track. There's Gordon, and Herta comes to the inside, tries to get around him. He's got him. Herta takes Gordon. Now Tracy works on Gordon. Whoa, those two together could be something to see. But they race well side by side. Bryan Herta coming through the field, now fourth. Al Unser Jr. comes around Gordon. Maybe there is a problem for Gordon. Carpentier would be the next one to try and get him. Hold a second, waiting to see if that happens. Jan Bikus, you want to give us an update?
Yes, I can. On Bryan Herta, you're wondering, where did he come from? Remember, he spun in the first turn of the first lap, and they say that he was hit from behind. There hasn't been any problems with the car all day. He was fast in the warm-up, and they just wish that hadn't happened because they said they could run for the lead. Let's go to Rick.
Well, the word from Gordon's crew is actually he's got no problem. In fact, they were pretty darn happy. The only problem they said they're really having is that the radio isn't working. They can talk to him, but they can't hear him. Although, to a certain degree, they were saying maybe it's better that way. But in terms of the performance of the car right now, I got to tell you, Gordon's crew is really happy.
77 laps now complete. 23 to go, assuming it goes to the 100th lap, 210-mile scheduled distance. The pit crews have not made that assumption. They assume it's going on time, and we'll just, in a few minutes, get that 10-minute notification and start counting the last 10 laps of the race.
Well, as Robbie starts to fall back, Paul, I think as the track dries, it'll be a disadvantage for him. He's in his element when things are difficult. And we're seeing, except for this section of the track, it's getting quite dry. And I think that's going to hurt Robbie as the race progresses. Oh, you can see a big tank slapper of Robbie Gordon. Roberto Moreno right behind him as they come out of turn 8.
And Michael Andretti slows over on the front stretch. Michael Andretti was third. Does the car come back on power? No, Herta's beginning to close. Michael Andretti came off at the last corner and slowed. Rick DeBrule?
According to the crew, they say on the radio he thinks that it is a possible gearbox problem. That's what they think it may be. He was doing fine, not a hint of problem up until that exact moment, and then suddenly, boom, he's in big trouble.
Robbie Gordon came into the pits after that lap and now heads back out. The Andretti problem is only going to whet the appetite for Brian Herta in fourth. If he sees that car with any hint of disability, he's going to attack with everything he has. There he is, Herta right behind, then Tracy, then Unser Jr.
Walter Salas right in front of Michael. He's going to want to try to get this pass done before they can get to the chicane. Otherwise, he'll have to follow him through and lose time to Brian.
Michael does get the pass done. Back at the front of the field, this is Montoya, and as you can see, he's beginning to run through some traffic. Jan Beekes?
Yes, I can update you on the length of the race. Derek Walker said 88, but in the meantime, I've checked with Montoya's crew. They say they think 90 to 91 will be the length of the race.
So the teams are guessing and trying to outguess race control. Montoya handles up P.J. Jones, one of the slower cars that he needed to get out of the way and behind him. Race control has just said on the 79th lap, this is officially a timed race 10 minutes from about, 15 seconds ago. So, crews played it right. They went for all they were worth. Just flatten the throttle, not worry about anything, and try to get to the end. Rick DeBrule.
Just wanted to update the Robbie Gordon story. Apparently he had a tire go down. One of those things happened suddenly. That's what brought him in. Ruined what was a great day, although he's still not too far back, all things considered.
Well, fortunately, when that happened, it looked like it happened over in the East End, and he was able to get it on pit road pretty quickly.
We saw him slide the car all the way out to the wall in 8. Great car control by Robbie Gordon. Dove into the pits, got it changed. Paul, with 10 minutes left, these guys are driving as hard as they possibly can, but from races in the past at Cleveland, we've seen it go down to the last few laps, and then all heck break loose. Cars having mechanical failures, guys running into each other. We'll see if they can maintain this pace and consistency to the checkered flag.
What a good ride this is for Al Unser Jr. and his new Lola that he started in at St. Louis at the end of May. He's right there working on Paul Tracy. His teammate Tarso Marquez, who is out of competition now, but also moved over to a Lola for this race.
And as these cars pick up speed, as the track dries out, we're more likely to see a mechanical problem as the cars are punished over these bumps.
Montoya's position over second place Gilles de Ferran has remained at 5.2 seconds the last 2 laps. Herta, Tracy right behind him, and Unser Jr., and then Carpentier. Rick DeBrule?
Standing by with Adrian Fernandez, who was a late rain victim out there, correct?
Yeah, we were doing pretty good now with the dry tires, and you know, it wasn't completely dry, but it was pretty good. And unfortunately, I just dropped a wheel where it was a little bit wet into, I think, the inside of turn 8, and that was it. That put me into the wall.
You had a great run going up until that point.
Exactly. No, we were running strongly, and you know, it's what it takes. You need to finish to be able to get some points. So this time didn't work, but next time we'll get him.
Now he's sitting in the pits, guys.
Montoya, Robbie Gordon just ahead. Traffic going to be his problem now. We'll have the Winston Cup from Sears Point as soon as this race is over. Whoa, everybody likes the break there. In fact, we'll take you right to Sears as soon as the checkered flag comes out. Will it be for Montoya? This race has often not been decided until the last lap. And with traffic in front of Montoya, that's only going to add to his woes.
As fast as Robbie was running before the pit stop, Montoya probably would like to have anyone else but Robbie in front of him at this point, because de Ferran has now brought it from just over 5 seconds to 3.7 seconds on that last lap. So de Ferran's closing in. The guys behind him are driving extremely hard as well.
De Ferran's going to have to get around P.J. Jones, which is no small feat. On the 78th lap, he was at 8 seconds, and 77, 7.8, and look how he's whittled it down last time by at 3.7 seconds from first place Montoya back to Gilles de Ferran. He's got to get around P.J. Jones. Back onto the pit straight. can see the advisory move over flag being given to Jones. He pulls wide. DeFerrin comes to the inside and comes forward. We're looking for Herta now. Here he comes. Paul Tracy just behind him. And just behind this, Unser and Carpentier also running very close.
And it looks like Michael Andretti is not having any further problems with his gearbox. He's maintained about the same cushion back to Herta. But Tracy pushing Herta very, very hard at this point.
And if you're waiting for the Winston Cup race from Sears Point, you will not miss the green flag. Got this all figured out. You'll see the checkered here at the end of the Card FedEx Championship Series, and then we'll send you right out to the West Coast for Winston Cup. The officials counting now at 5.5 minutes to go in the race. Montoya to DeFerrin. The interval has extended to 5.9, almost 6 seconds. This will give you a look at the interval. He's through. Here comes DeFerrin. DeFerrin is the one now with slower traffic in front of him. Michael Andretti, he's struggling with those gears, but he's still able to stay in third place.
We can see Montoya got around Robbie Gordon. Probably Robbie letting him by, knowing the position with the leader behind him, because Robbie was running as fast as anybody on the racetrack. Just being a professional, letting the leader through.
Interval widens out first to second. DeFerrin now 7 seconds back. Still focusing on Bryan Herta and Paul Tracy. That fight is for fourth.
You can see how wet it is still on this section of the race course. They still have to be very, very careful. They're running about 1.5 to 2 seconds slower than they were in the opening stages of the race. And it has to be primarily because of the water still standing down in turn 8.
Yellow flag being shown at the start-finish line. Robbie Gordon spun going into the first turn and got going again. There you see Robbie pulls away. DeFerrin had to drive around. Robbie Gordon maintained his second place position. The interval widens 8.2 seconds. Montoya is driving away. I'm going to show you the full field as it sits right now. 8 cars on the lead lap. Good runs, especially by Al Unser Jr. and by Mimo Gidley. Come in there and collect a point for this race. Moreno again with another great run, replacing Mark Blundell, who kind of hedged it a little bit when he visited us up here in the booth. He said he hopes to be back in 2 weeks at Road America, but didn't sound like he was all that sure.
As you mentioned, great run by Mimo Gidley in his second outing in a Champ Cars, picking up a couple of points if he can get it to the end. This track is very difficult to learn because it's so flat and so wide. There are no visual references. It's difficult to learn this track and get into a rhythm. Tarso, Marquez, Gidley, and more importantly, Juan Montoya, first-time visitors.
You saw Herta as he ran off course, back on. Tracy got by, now little Al gets by. Now Herta gets back up to a full steam. But Al Unser Jr. stays past him. Carpentier comes in behind him. So does Moreno. You will not miss the green flag for the Winston Cup race. They are holding for you. We'll get this one done in just a very few minutes, and then we'll send you right out to the West Coast. 2 minutes. Now counting to the end of this race. It switched from a 100-lap run to a timed race because of heavy rain showers, thunderstorms in the early going. Long period of caution, and then on rain tires they went back to racing, and finally as the track dried had to switch over to dry tires. Juan Montoya looks like he's going to do it again. A 9.6-second lead on second place Gil DeFerrin, but remember, the racetrack, the airport, has been beating this car at every corner, and the car must survive to the end. The question now is not so much whether or not Montoya can keep it there, it's whether or not the car will stay under him. No indication that there's anything wrong with that machine, but you have to consider the fact that it's been punished, and the punishment has been brutal.
In Montoya's favor, the Ganassi Target team has had remarkable reliability over the last few years. Montoya making so few mistakes during the course of this season. Very, very tough mentally, very consistent, and very aggressive. A difficult combination to obtain at best.
Now, obviously, because we're going to run right to the end of this race and then switch you out to the West Coast for Winston Cup, the winner's interview will not take place here. That's just a factor of time. But it will be later on RPM tonight. Next time by, Montoya will see the white flag. 1 lap to go. Next time by the line, DeFerrin is nearly 10 seconds back. Andretti is about 1.5 seconds back from DeFerrin. Here comes that whole group. Al Unser Jr., Brian Herta battled for 5th. Tracy's managed to pull away in 4th. There's Tracy. Carpentier as though still very much part of this fight. Rick DeBrule.
Just want to update the situation on Brian Herta. Apparently, he almost got into contact with Gidley. That's what caused him to go off. The reason he was so slow was just getting stuff off the tires and getting back up to speed. Nothing wrong with the car, just a problem with getting back up to speed.
Montoya through the first turn for the final time. Looking very strong.
What a brilliant drive once again for Juan Montoya. He's conquered street courses, road courses, airport circuits, ovals, all in his first year in Champ Car competition. What an amazing young man he is. Tremendous car control, some of the fastest hands and reflexes I've ever seen, which has been echoed up and down the pit lane. Very disciplined, very focused.
Montoya works the final set of turns on this race course. Just one chicane separates him from victory. DeFerrin will come across the line nearly 9 seconds later as Montoya slowed slightly down. Winston Cup is next. Bob Jenkins, Benny Parsons, and the gang standing by.
Great job today, pal. Great job. You're the man. That was a hell of a job today.
And Chip Ganassi congratulates his driver as Juan Montoya scores his 4th win of the year and extends his points lead. And it's the 3rd win in a row at Cleveland for Chip Ganassi and his team. DeFerrin is 2nd, Andretti 3rd, then Tracy, Unser Jr., Herta, Carpentier, Moreno, Robbie Gordon is 9th, and Richie Hearn is 10th. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of the Go Network.